Hi. In the last video, we went over pulling data from the web and then, where necessary, dropping an observation if that observation does not actually contain data. In this video, we're going to build on that. So what you're going to want to do is, if you haven't done so already, you want to pull the do file that goes over pulling data from the web. And you want to pull the Gleditch 2002 data using the code that we used in the last video and drop the first observation. So I'm just going to go ahead, copy and paste that text from the do file and run that. So you should do that as well. Great. So what we're going to do now is we're going to clean up this data. Specifically, we are going to rename some of the variables. And after we do that, I'll explain why you would do that. So if we go to the data viewer, we can see that we have ID num, which is a numerical code for a country, ID acra, so ID acronym, which is just sort of a common sense acronym for a country, so USA for United States of America, the year, and then the population in thousands. So we see in the United States in 1816 the population was about 8.5 million. And then source is probably a variable that just refers to where the data came from, but we don't need to worry about that right now. So what we need to do is we need to rename these variables because we need them to have a sort of common language for the data merge. So when we do a data merge between two data sets, certain variables are going to have the same name. So the variable that has the numerical country code in one data set is going to have to be the same as the other data set, exactly the same. And the variable that is year is going to have to be exactly the same between the two data sets. So we need to rename those the equivalent between the two data sets. So what we're going to do is we are just going to rename the year and ID num variables and change them to C code and all caps for year. So rename tells Stata that we want to change the name of a variable. We're not changing the contents of the data set, but we are changing the labeling for the variables. So rename is the command, followed by the original variable name, so what the variable is named now, so ID num, and then what we're changing it to. We're changing it to C code, all in caps. And then the same for year. So we're just going to run this code, and it's pretty obvious that it worked. If we go to our variables window, we see that ID num is now C code, all caps, and year, lowercase, is now year, all caps. Also, if we go to our data viewer, we see that ID num is now C code, and then year, lowercase, is now year, all caps. Sort of skipping ahead a little bit, if we go look at the do file, the reason we're doing this is we see that the data set, the polity data that we're going to be merging with, they use C code and they use year, all caps. So we've just made a decision to make the year and country code variables match between the Gleditch and the polity data. Because as we actually do the merge, you'll see that we do the merge on country year. Okay, and to wrap up, we're just going to sort by year and country code, so the data is in order. And then we're just going to save our data set, give it a name that makes sense. So the first bit of code, just sort year C code, means we're sorting it by country year. And then save means we're saving the data set. This is just the name we're giving it. You can give it another name if you want, maybe Gleditch 2002, but we're just saving it as pop. And then if you want, also you could save the data set using the menu up here if you wanted to save it in a particular directory. And this bit of code here, this option, again, remember that whenever we put a comma after some code in Stata, we are specifying that we're going to add options. So this says that we're adding an option to the save command. Replace just means if there's another data set in the directory that you're saving this to named pop, we're going to overwrite this. Again, that's probably something you want to be careful with if you in your directories have another data set named pop, but that's what replace is doing. It's overwriting any other data set that in your directory that is named pop. And again, that's just an example of the syntax for adding an option to Stata. If you were to add additional options to Stata, the way you would do it is you would just type it space after the other option. You would not need to use another comma. Okay, so we sort by country year. We've saved the data, population.dta. It's saved, and that's it for now. The next step will be to import the polity data and set up the merge.